Welcome to Avalara 1099 and W-9. In this video, we want to focus on what a complete workflow might look like for a marketplace that has to collect W-9s from their sellers, transform those W-9s into 1099s, e-file those 1099s to the IRS in January, and finally, get a copy of the 1099s back to their sellers. What you can see on screen is an example portal that you might create on your own with Avalara. We have extensive documentation for how to do this. When you onboard a new seller, you'll instruct them to come here to submit their W-9. They'll click this button and enter their personal information. In this case, we'll say they are a sole proprietor and we'll give them a physical address. Let's say it's in Oregon. Of course, they need to give you a social security number. You will prompt them for permission to accept their information by clicking Yes, and you'll require their electronic signature. Now notice that the application did something quite special. Working behind the scenes, it attempted to match their social security number with the IRS database, and, in this instance, discovered that they don't match. That real-time TIN matching, at the point of onboarding, is going to save you a lot of headache. The seller can go back and fix their erroneous social security number. As you can see, this time it passed our TIN matching test. All of that is what your seller is going to experience when you onboard them within your branded environment. Now let's bring up Avalara 1099 and W-9 and see how it looks on your end. Click on the name of your marketplace and, sure enough, here's the newly onboarded seller and their W-9. You can onboard new sellers anytime during the year, but let's assume now that it's January and it's time for you to transform that W-9 into a 1099. Back to our main dashboard, and let's click the Transfer button. Pick the type of 1099 you want to create and transfer it. That process is now complete. So far, you've obtained a W-9 from the seller and turned it into a 1099. All that's left is to e-file it before the IRS deadline. To do that, open up the list of 1099s associated with this marketplace. Click on the seller's name, and there's just one thing missing in their 1099, the income you paid them during the year. If you have a lot of sellers, you can import that information from a spreadsheet or use an API integration to save time. But for this demonstration, and since we're only talking about one seller, let's just add that manually. Click Save, and you'll see in the form summary that the seller's 1099 is ready for e-filing, as indicated by this icon. You can proceed to the next step and schedule a date for the e-filing to the IRS. Choose a date for the e-filing and decide whether or not you'd like Avalara to postal mail a copy to the seller. If you are planning on providing electronic copies of the 1099 to your sellers via your web portal, having Avalara postal mail the form may not be necessary. Finally, you can add on an address verification service and one more round of TIN matching if you want. Let's proceed. If the seller state has additional requirements, we'll prompt you for those as well, so you can simply add them to your order. That's it. That's how you take care of 1099s for your marketplace sellers. Meanwhile, when your seller returns to their W-9 onboarding page, they can simply download a copy of their 1099, which you can retrieve via our API. That's what a common workflow looks like for a marketplace that uses Avalara 1099 and W-9. If you have questions about what you see here, or a unique use case that requires explanation, we'd be happy to talk further.